So now, for those of you that don't recall, or for those of you that need a refresher, a couple of weeks ago, SaberSpark faced some pretty, I'm not going to say heavy allegations, because they weren't really that founded, okay? They didn't really have a lot of substantiation. And as a matter of fact, we've come to learn that my theory that I've been saying from the very beginning about these allegations being coached or directed in a certain way have in fact been correct. Like, my theory is in fact correct. Brony Fandom was the first breaker of these allegations. He posted them over on Twitter. And apparently, as it turns out, he's making a follow-up post saying, "Hi, everyone, at the request of the victim, her original testimony has been taken down. I wonder why. This is not a retraction." So, to be clear, she's not taking back the allegations. She's just going to reword them. She would prefer to work through this in therapy. Okay, so not even reword. She's just looking for a new direction in this entire situation. I would probably consider that to be a retraction, right? She knows she can't substantiate her claims. Her claims are probably not truthful, given the fact that she was coached into saying specific things. She would rather work through this in therapy. I think this is enough here to claim that these allegations were completely unsubstantial and should not be believed. They have no credibility. Any information you would like to see can be found on Mr. Enter's interview with her here. Okay, I guess we can just skip straight to it.
Now that we've kind of gone over at least absolutely everything that I can possibly think of, right? Let's just get this clear. Even if you are like the most abominable person ever, let's say that everything that everyone on the internet has ever said about you is true. Does that inherently mean that when it comes to everything about SaberSpark, that you just would make this kind of thing up? Or this would be... I can see why people would come to that conclusion that it's like, oh, she's lied before, she must be lying about this. However, given that we just had this conversation, where you gave us, more context to all these things that you've been accused of, even if you were, like, the most evil person ever, I think bad things do happen to bad people, and I don't think that things that previous controversies that's happened well over 10 years ago should determine whether or not you're being truthful about this now. Because we have to look at, like, the context of what we're talking about. Like, and I get that this is digging up 10-year-old shit, but, like, does this shit line up? Maybe they did lie about a couple things in the past, but does that mean they're lying about this? No, I think if we're immediately jumping to...
Way too many leading questions. Way too many leading questions already. Also, filling way too much conversation here. Just ask them what their intentions were and be done with it. What were your intentions when you were coming out with these allegations? Obviously, they might not be completely honest because they had previous they had a previous history of lying, but it's up to the person to interpret whether or not they want to believe what they have to say about what their intentions are.
To that.
There is no reason to continue leading them in a certain direction.
I don't think that's fair because then that means that nobody actually goes through and looks through and vets the story at all, which I'm glad it took me a bit, but I did, yay me. But
yes, I'm sure.
That is completely unnecessary. Just ask them what their intentions were.
And I'd say the issue with that mindset is that it perpetuates the idea that, a victim has
The heavy breathing in the background. Jesus Christ, dude.
To be innocent in everything in order for them to be telling the truth, and that's just not true, and it's actually very harmful and silencing to people who do deal with these things, because look, when it comes to bad people, most of these bad people had something horrible happen to them that caused them to be a bad person. No one just becomes a bad person out of the womb.
Yeah, it's like a perfect victim complex, right? It's one of those things where people are just like, if you come out about this sort of thing, you have to be the absolute perfect angel about everything else. And it is harmful, yeah, because then it's like Casey was trying to bring all this stuff against you as like something that's like, you shouldn't believe a thing they're saying because of all this. And it's like, well, maybe if you have a sit-down conversation with them, you might get all of the extra context that's been missing. Because, this is over 10 years worth of...
Yes, which has been the goal from the very beginning, but nobody has done that until now, apparently. And even then, you still can measure somebody's reputation or somebody's credibility based on the things that they have accused in the past and how truthful they were and what their motives were behind those accusations.
Your career, right? Things are gonna be lost in the sauce a little bit after...
There's a difference between someone being traumatized or being coerced into doing something and somebody genuinely having a history of just lying on people or doing terrible things for their own gain or for vindictive or for vindictive reasons.
5 to 10 years, so
is it true that a victim can be vindictive and had something happen to them at the same time? Yes. But this is exactly why we should be more skeptical and try to pursue these avenues through legal measures instead of playing sit-down detective like this. This is completely unnecessary.
Even imagine a lot of people now would be able to know who like Blue Eyed is, because I don't think she's online as much now. So there are people who are, maybe they're new and they don't know, like how would not all the information available or easy to find, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I certainly thought when I first started hearing all this stuff that this was like easily accessible, like information that people have known about or whatever the hell, you know. But you know, knowing that this stuff is really old and ancient, online in the era kind of things, puts into perspective like, well, is there anything missing context wise because it's been 10 years, and are all these people willing to talk about it kind of thing? And so many of them aren't really, because like,
this is completely unnecessary to the conversation. This is completely unnecessary to the conversation.
That Blue Eyed Fox is really online, and you know, I'm sure Lizzie is hopefully being peaceful and doing her own things now. Probably, hope.
Right. Yeah.
So, let's start at the very beginning. At least the beginning of your whole YouTube career. I would love to start.
All of this is completely unnecessary. Literally, none of this is completely unnecessary. Unironically, like genuinely, no joke, Dickers could have handled this conversation significantly better. He would have actually asked the right questions, and this did not have to be 3 hours fucking long. We did not need most of this fucking bullshit. Get to the fucking point. They're fucking probably uploading this, going like, "Oh my god, look at us. We're all sitting here in a VC, trying to get down to the fucking bottom of this, trying to understand this person better." Dude, just fucking ask what their intentions were. Ask why they felt like they were wronged. Ask who they discussed these allegations with, so we can get an idea of how or to what extent they were coached when coming out with these allegations, or to what extent they felt like they were wronged, so that we can measure ourselves whether this person is coming from a place of vindictive nature, or whether they feel like they were genuinely wronged. And even then, what they feel might be genuinely wrong to them might be completely different than what an outside onlooker or what an outside, viewer might consider genuinely wrong. This is completely fucking unnecessary. These people are so useless and pathetic. Let serious people handle these conversations.
Yeah. Was there any particular reason why KP specifically? Because you said that like the people recommending her said that she was already a victim. Is that in regards to like the Chris stuff, or just like because they used to be friends and SaberSpark, you know, blew her off or whatever the hell?
That's, I think, what they were referring to. They were like, yeah, she's a victim of Saber because of the situation with Chris, with the sexual harassment, and Saber not really like, doing anything.
What? No, already we can see a measurement that these people are completely delusional. KP was a victim of SaberSpark via somebody else's actions that were sexual harassment about a joke that was told 10 years ago. A joke that she didn't find out about until years later? You can't be serious. You can't be serious. What?
About it. But I didn't have that context until I then talked to KP. So everyone's saying she's a victim too, I'm like, oh, okay, like what happened here?
No, she wasn't a victim of she was a victim of a joke?
You know, so then...
Yeah, it was a joke in poor taste. Was it absolutely disgusting? Yes. Would I make a joke about something like that? No. But she wasn't sexually harassed. Does she even know what actually occurred? Okay, in that call that was linked between both of them, by the way, KP confronted this guy, I believe his name was Chris Aficionados, about a joke that she didn't find out about until years later. He apologized profusely, and they both acknowledged that it wasn't actually like a sexual harassment thing. It was a joke that she was disgusted by, that she felt personally motivated to like drag Chris over. She wasn't a victim of anything. She was just perturbed and she was pissed off. And she had a chip on her shoulder and she just wanted to punch somebody. That's essentially what that conversation was. She wasn't a victim.
I reached out to KP and then we got into a call and she asked me what happened. I told my story of everything and then she kind of delved into all of her stuff going on with Chris.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I got you. So just so that the world is aware, because I think a lot of people at the beginning, because of KP's video, which we don't even need to get into, because I'm sure you don't want to speak, because you said you don't want to speak ill will of KP or anything, or you don't have anything against them personally or whatever.
You absolutely should have something against her. She botched your story if you actually have anything like genuine here.
I think everybody's very aware of what the state of that video was.
Yeah,
but,
that'll get us sidetracked right now.
Yeah, so a lot of people, because of the way that whole video was handled, assume that you were something.
Credits, Mr. Enter, investigator. The one and only Phineas, investigator. Lazy Bedhead, investigator. Graceland, investigator. Maddie A, investigator / title card artist. These people take themselves way too seriously, and I find that appalling. I find that gross. There is a level of how serious you should conduct yourself and how you should take yourself in a situation like this. But you should also clearly understand your limits. You are not an investigator. You are not capable of getting justice for these individuals. You are not capable of actually, doing any sort of law enforcement here. You are not capable of getting law enforcement to do anything either. You are not capable of discerning fact from fiction in situations like these. People can be, thrown for a twist in a loop at any point in time. You guys are not that capable, and that is incredibly important to know. As creators, everybody has to understand their limits. Everybody has to understand their limits. Instead of pretending like you are, bringing somebody's truth to light. You don't know if this person is lying. You can't go back all of those fucking years and, understand exactly what the dynamics were during that interaction, if there was one at all. You can't claim yourself to be an investigator. This is so pathetic, dude. This is so pathetic. They're doing this. They're obviously fronting this, level of credibility that they think that they have, that they actually don't have. They're LARPing as people that can actually be taken seriously as investigators on the internet, on YouTube, when that is not at all the case. These people are so deeply unserious. It's pathetic.
You are somewhat of a manifestation of Brody, Fando, and KP, that you just simply don't exist. I'm talking to you right now, so clearly that's not true. You're very real. You have a voice. Here you are. There you are. You exist. So let's just address that. You are real.
Fuck Mama Max at this point with the whole Cameron F305 stuff. I talked to this victim a lot. I was trying to get down to the bottom of all of the fucking nitty gritty out of all of these, loops and twists and turns in the story in the Cameron F305 situation. And my conclusion at the end of it all is that this situation is so layered in lies, in narratives, and plots, in stories, in manufacture, and what's it called, in manufactured ideas and twists. It's so much bullshit that Cameron was responsible for. I realized that actually continuing coverage on it would be incredibly dangerous because we'd be nearing way too close to very, very serious. I want to say we'd be getting way too close to very, very serious discussions that should not belong on YouTube, right? You have to understand your limits, and I can guarantee you that I was doing a far better job at quote unquote investigating that story than these morons are interviewing this person's entire history on YouTube and asking them why they went to KP of all people. I got a lot of information and I discerned a lot of stuff from the Cameron F305 stuff. I pulled a lot from that story. And I can say in confidence that it would be incredibly reckless for me to pull something off like this.
I'm real. I'm a real person. I've got a channel. Yes, I'm a real person with this real experience that happened. I was kind of shocked.
I'm a real person with a real experience that happened. Yes, the experience might be real, but to what extent was it actually rape?
I see people assume that, but I don't entirely blame them because, obviously, even when it came to putting my trust in everybody, I still was I would rather just kind of be anonymous, please. I really, it's I'm kind of coming forward, but I'm still, I don't want to get...
I'm kind of coming forward, but then do you actually have anything here at all worth investigating? A victim doesn't just kind of come forward. Somebody that legitimately feels wrong, and I'm sorry to victim blame here, somebody that legitimately feels wronged doesn't just kind of come forward. You're either all in or you're not. You're either all in or you're not.
Brutally harassed, by fans of him, and so I
brutally harassed by fans of him. That seems like such a poor excuse.
I understand why people came to that conclusion, kind of, but no, I'm very much real.
Well, I don't think, there's not really a ton of examples of him really using his fan base for that purpose, but I can see still the concern just based on a victim's perspective of because he's a big guy, right? He's got a big channel, he's got a lot of followers, so there's always that concern of well, what, he's got a fan base, how are they gonna react? Are they gonna be vicious about it? Are they gonna be rude?
Well, and let's also be completely upfront. I don't have nearly as much as he does, and I still have fans who do this even when I don't encourage them to. When I'm telling them, do not do this. I do not encourage.
Yes, but that comes with putting your allegations or anything out on the internet. You either do or you don't.
This, and they still do it. So even if Saber himself is not encouraging it,
like when it comes to situations like these, you can't have your cake and eat it too, because of these reasons specifically. people are going to find out who you are because it's going to be really, really easy to, like, track down these details. It's going to be really, really easy to deduce and, like, triangulate where you were, and based on where you were, who you are, based on the type of friends that he had and who he interacted with around these times. It's going to be very easy. You don't get to have it both ways. So that's so again, you're either all in or you're not.
It's still going to happen, and we saw this happen actually when Saber responded, and Brony Fandle got pushed to the point of attempting his life. You know, because
Yeah, but that's because Brony Fandle is genuinely a fucking moron. And that wasn't to do with harassment. That was due to the fact that Brony Fandle couldn't handle the pressure of being a complete fucking idiot. Don't try to invoke somebody's alleged suicide attempt for this.
people were harassing him that badly. You know,
No, they weren't. He's just a complete moron that cracked under pressure for pushing information that could not be substantiated.
seen these
So he looked like a fool. He had egg on his face.
comments, and they're very mean.
Right.
He had some comments and they're very mean.
So
A million people could tell me to off myself right now and I would not give a fuck. I would not bat a single eye.
let's talk about the response video for a second. Because SaberSpark more so kind of says that the whole thing was just a giant hit piece on him, which I think is probably the reason why people think you don't exist. But what was your whole, like, thought process just kind of watching his response video? Like, did you think it was, like... good?
No, people don't think you don't exist not because of SaberSpark's video, but because the allegations from the get came from a malicious actor that didn't take the majority of the video that she made very seriously. The allegations had no substantiation, was completely hearsay. So it's either fair to assume that either this victim doesn't exist or this victim is malicious. And if they're not malicious, they're incredibly ignorant. Because the statement in and of itself is contradictory. You say that you were raped. Then you say that you were raped by coercion and that it's hard for you to understand whether there was implied consent or not. But then you also go on to say that you went through with this stuff anyways because you liked the guy and you didn't want the guy to dislike you. That's not rape. That's also not coerced rape. That is consent.
Or, like, you're like, oh, you know, great response, bro. Like, I don't know. I don't know how a victim would respond to a response video of that.
Right? I mean, in terms of looking at it from somebody who would be hypothetically a fan of him, wanting to get the truth of, like, what happened, you know, can you speak on this? I don't think it was very good because it doesn't even really go into it, you know, and I found that to be interesting that he focused so much on this. He doesn't say it, but I will say it is very heavily implied that this was just a manifestation of KP and Brony Fandle. I was shocked to see that because I know he knows who I am. We all know that because Casey acknowledged.
No, that's not at all what he makes up in the, like, that's not at all what he states in this video. He said that he had consensual sex. Enthusiastic consensual sex, which is something that was being used against him. He never says that that you don't exist. He just says that the allegations of rape are false.
That she knows who
These people are being incredibly dishonest.
I am, who is friends with SaberSpark.
Right.
So I was really shocked by that response, honestly.
Yeah, it certainly didn't make sense for Casey to be like, I know who it is, look them up, they got all these controversies, and SaberSpark's just being like, this was all just a manifestation of KP and Brony Fandle. They were the one that put this whole thing together, and I can prove it. And it's like, so you're not going to address... I mean, I guess if for...
No, that's not what he claims at all. He doesn't say that this was just a manifestation of KP and Brony Fandle. He says that they have pushed false allegations in the past, and they are continuing to push false allegations now. More specifically, Brony Fandle. He doesn't say that it is a legitimately, fake story with a fake victim. He says that the allegation in and of itself is fake because they have attempted to push fake allegations in the past in an attempt to seek internet justice because they genuinely have the delusional belief that internet justice is more effective than real-life justice.
In his perspective,
This is so dishonest.
maybe it's trying to prove a negative. Like, I'm not sure how I can address what they're talking about when it's very obvious that, like, they have this thing against me or whatever. Like, I suppose from a legal standpoint, I get it. But, like, you do exist. Like, you're here. I figure, you know, you should, if, at the very least, you should have just said, like, the story is BS. Like, I would appreciate that more if you just said that shit never happened, lol. Like, I don't understand why he's just like,
right.
yeah, like, why he just was just like, KP is just trying to make a hit piece on me. And I'm like, I mean, yeah.
Because that's exactly what occurred.
Yeah, she does have something against you, that's true. But, like, you could at least...
That's exactly what he did. He said that I did have consensual sex. The allegations are false. They have fabricated these allegations against me. That doesn't necessarily mean that the victim doesn't exist. It just means that they're not a victim.
Go through the details of this testimony she was able to get for her video and just go through it.
And
be like,
right now,
try to
honestly, I'm not being convinced that there was a rape. I'm not convinced that this person genuinely believes that she was raped. I think that this is genuinely one of those cases where a person regrets having a sexual interaction with somebody now that they find them gross 10 years later for their association with somebody that, by the way, has been slandered and defamed in their own right. So the association criticism is no longer valid, even in their own delusional world, where guilt by association works. And I guarantee you they're starting to realize these things, and they're like walking it back now. But I don't even hear them doubling down on these allegations.
Dissect it in any amount, but like he didn't really do that. He just said, nah, just don't listen because it's KP and Brony Fando, which is poisoning the well. That doesn't really address what they're saying, you know?
Yep, no,
Which is poisoning the well. He doesn't have to poison the well. They did that to themselves.
completely agree. Like, I mean, a lot of people I would expected was for him to like maybe read it and say, no, it's just all made up. No, all this is made up, or maybe just, you know what I mean, just something to debunk it. But instead, from my understanding, he just makes a comment that says, yeah, it's false, and okay. And then everybody said, oh my God, he beat the allegations.
Right. I mean, I guess he did it because, I mean, technically what
he did beat the allegations. He's beating the allegations through this interview right now. You can't even seem to take your own allegations seriously enough to iterate them in a way that actually functions. You had to retract them because of how coached they were. Or that's what I'm assuming, to be clear. I'm speculating.
Addressing his KP directly because they're the one that put the video out there. So, I mean, from my perspective, if I just need to address what KP's saying, sure. But, what he's addressing is what KP's problem with him is. It's not what your problem with him is, because I'm pretty... Not that he's under the impression that maybe you don't exist, but maybe it's, like, for legal reasons. He probably can't if he's trying to do lawsuits and all that other things, I couldn't imagine what the part reason is. This is just me theorizing and just kind of throwing ideas out there.
I understand, yeah. That could be what am I trying to say? That could be possible. That, yeah, it's just maybe he is working on a lawsuit against both KP or Brony Fandolin, or one of them, who knows. And maybe because of that, he is trying to be mindful about what he says.
Yeah, maybe it works better... It works... Sorry, I was gonna say it works better in his favor to sue these two people for, like, defamation if you don't exist. If he just can, like, prove, like, this is just something they made up about me maliciously because they don't like me, and you
No, he still very much can sue for defamation regardless of whether this person exists or not, because the allegations in and of themselves seem to be fabricated. They seem to come from a place of, like, nowhere. They didn't do their due diligence. They heard a story from somebody else. They coached this person in a specific direction. They publicated the stories without any concern for, like, for the truth. Reckless disregard of the truth. They can, in fact, be sued for defamation. Whether he will or not, who knows? That's speculation. Who do these people think they are? QQ, I'm going insane, dude. I'm going insane.
Don't exist. That's an easy win in court. But since you do exist, I don't know. It's a little harder,
No. Again, no. They publicated allegations that cannot be substantiated at all. Reckless disregard for the truth. The fact that this person does or doesn't exist is irrelevant to that.
Yeah, a little more difficult.
Because now that he kind of has to address this person who is real that's actually making an accusation that they stand by. They might not stand by the way it was put out there, but they still are like, yeah, this was the thing that happened. I'm not, like, just making this up.
Yeah, like, yes, the way that it happened, I don't stand by that, but yes, that's my story.
Mm-hmm. What do you want to happen, like, with SaberSpark?
The way that it happens, I don't stand by that. But yes, that's your story. Yes, but your story as well could be defamatory. And given the fact that nobody did the job or did the work to fact check it, and in fact, you were somewhat coached along into saying certain things, and then you edited your story while you were giving your story to KP, and the fact that they didn't do an effort to correct the record or to, like, do any investigation, again, reckless disregard for the truth, it is grounds for defamation.
Like, what was your end goal in sharing this? Were you just like, are you like on the whole, like, let's burn everything SaberSpark made, or like, what's your, like, kind of end goal in this?
In all honesty, when it came to speaking out, there wasn't really a whole lot of one, apart from just me proving that I could actually speak up about something. Because, like I mentioned, I have a history of dealing with assault, and I have not been good about speaking up about it. And for me, more than anything, it was just kind of a personal thing of saying, no, I'm not okay with this. This has nothing to do with, honestly, it's not anything to do with trying to hurt him, and obviously I acknowledge it does. I don't really want to hurt anybody, but at the same time, honestly, when it came to, like, the story coming out, deep down, I just kind of had hoped, I mentioned I don't want him to reach out, but if he had emailed me and just gave me an apology of, like, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I had made you uncomfortable, that would have been a very healing thing to receive.
What? So what? So this isn't even a fucking rape allegation anymore. This isn't even a rape allegation anymore. This absolutely is somebody like coming from a place where they just feel wronged. Where like not wronged in a lighter sense. Where they feel like they are owed an apology. Where This is somebody that years later is just perturbed about something that they disliked. This is not a rape. Dude.
You know.
With that,
SaberSpark beat the allegations. I was skeptical in the past because he didn't address it. But again, it would be incredibly hard for him to prove a negative. But at this rate, I'm starting to believe that SaberSpark has been defamed and that he did not rape this girl.
even just addressing that part, would you be like, not that I would ever set this up because I don't know, would you ever like be interested in even just talking to Steven?
Yeah, this is another case of regretting the sex, and she just wanted an apology. This is not a rape.
One-on-one at all about this? Like, could you?
I don't know if I could ever feel comfortable being in a situation where I'm actually directly speaking to him, like voice with voice.
Sure.
I just feel like I feel like I would be so anxious talking to him because of what happened.
Well, the only people that SaberSpark could sue would be Brony Fandone and KP. I don't think he'd be able to sue. I don't think he'd be able to sue the quote unquote victim, because the victim's story to like, you know, to herself could in fact be her like genuine recollection of events, and it would be incredibly hard to prove otherwise. It would be her word against SaberSpark's. However, given the fact that KP and Brony Fandone quite literally pushed this story with reckless disregard for the truth, KP admitting that they understood that they didn't do their due diligence on this, and that it can in fact be you know, like she literally admitted to just pushing the story without due diligence. Okay, that is pretty damning in the court of law.